Hi Math 5-4. This is the video for lesson 111, which is located on page 517 in your textbook, excuse me. And this is scheduled for Monday, April 13th. The time test for today is a time test G, which is 64 multiplication facts, located on page 217. So go ahead and do that test and then have your parents grade it. And I'll get started with the lesson. For this lesson, we're going to be using our book for me to do examples, because this shape right here, I'm on page 517 on the bottom. 517, the very bottom. Let me get all my extra papers out of here. Sorry about that. Down here, looking at this shape. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is estimating area. And as you remember, when we worked with estimating this year, estimating is kind of our best guess based on the information we're given. So there's a couple different ways we can go about estimating. We're supposed to look at, this is a 1-inch grid. That means each little square in here is 1 inch. So we're supposed to look at this grid and estimate what the area of this blue triangle is. Well, as we look at it, we can see that, there's some whole triangles, like letter F here is a whole squares colored in. But there's a lot of partial squares colored in also, like F is partial, A is tiny, D is tiny, B is mostly covered. And so we can look at, so we have to figure out a way. What is our best way to estimate what the area of this triangle is? And so there's two different methods that we're going to use. The first method is to look at it and find first all the whole 1-inch grid squares that are covered completely. So if I look at this, I see, looking at the letters, there's only one I see that is completely covered. Okay, so that's letter F. So I know I'm going to keep tally on my sheet of paper over here when I find what I did with it. There it is in front of me. Okay, so I know that I have 1 for letter F. So I'm going to write that down to remind me where I'm at. I have 1 so far. Well, then I have to look at it and start piecing together the rest of it and go, okay, what can I put together that looks like it could make a whole square? Okay, so if I look at E and A, if I was to take this piece of A and put it right here, it looks like E plus A could make another whole 1-inch square. So I'm going to write that down to remind myself that E plus A looks like it's 1. Okay? And then, so I've done E, A, and F. So I have to look at what I have left. So I'm going to come over here. If I look over here to C and G, if I take this C and I was to rotate it around and put it in the square here with G, it looks like C plus G would make an entire square unit also. So I'm going to write that down. 1 for C plus G. Now I need to look at it and go, okay, what do I have left? I've used A. I haven't used B. I've used C. I haven't used D. I've used E. I've used F. And I've used G. So I have 2 left. I have B left, and I have D left. So looking at that square of B and this square of D only, I have to look at it and go, oh, well, maybe if I took this little piece of D and I rotated it up, it looks like it would fill the 1-inch square of B. So I'm going to say that B plus D equals 1 square also. So I'm going to estimate. Now I've used them all. I have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G all used. So now I'm going to estimate and say that I have 4 square, remember we abbreviate that SQ sometimes, inches. and that's how I'm gonna estimate. So that's one method. That's taking and counting up all your whole pieces, which is what I did here. I started with my whole pieces, okay? And then I started adding up my partial pieces. Okay? So that's one method. Another way to do this is to look at and only count pieces that have more than half covered. So, looking back at this same shape, I'm only going to count the pieces that have more than half covered. If I do that, I know F definitely has more than half covered. But you know what? I'm going to go by the alphabet. I'm going to start with A. Does A have more than half of the square inch covered? No, it doesn't. So I'm not even going to count that. B. Does B have more than half of the square covered? Well, yeah, it looks like it does. So I'm going to say B. I'm going to count that as 1. C. Does C have more than half of the square covered? No. So I'm not going to count that. D. Does D have more than half of the square covered? No. So I'm not going to count that one either. E. Does E have more than half of the square covered? Yes, it does. So I'm going to count E as 1. F. Does F have more than half of the square covered? Yes. So I'm going to count it as 1. And G. Does G have more than half of the square covered? Yes. So I'm going to count it as 1 also. And when I add that up, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, I get 4 square inches. Which is the same answer I got when I did my problem using the whole pieces and adding up the partials. So my second method, there's 2 separate methods. Method number 2 is you count only pieces, P-I-E-C-E-S, that have over half covered. Okay, that's your second method. In both ways, I ended up with 4 square inches as my area. Okay? So, when you look on page, if you want more, you'll have your practice problems, of course, but if you want more work on that, you can do the activity sheet 35. Okay? We typically don't do that in class, but if you like this activity and you want to do more, you definitely can pull that out. That's in your test and worksheet booklet. Okay, so your practice problems are A and B for, I'm on page 518. Now, excuse me, since we are estimating, what you need to remember also is we're estimating. So my answer on my 2 problems was about 4 square inches. Okay, I said about. So there can be a range. The answer may be anywhere, you know, maybe it was anywhere from 3 to 5 would be an acceptable answer because it's an estimate. And sometimes estimates have a little bit of a range. So had I said that the, going back to this shape here, had I said that it was about 3 square inches, well, that could be acceptable because it's an estimate. We know that on this one, the best estimate was 4, okay? Some of your, the reason I say that is some of your practice problems, the answer is going to have a range because something like this, it's really hard to have everybody have the exact same number. Some of you may end up, you know, with 1 number less or 1 number more, and that's okay. In the solutions manual for your parents, it's going to give them a range of what's the accepted answers, so to speak. So just know that an estimate is not, in doing something like this, an estimate is not exact. There could be, you know, you could be 1 or 2 digits one way or another, okay? So your practice problems are on page 518. There's only these two, A and B. There'll be a video coming for lesson 112 soon. Bye.